Okay, we are going to go live on Facebook. We're going to go live in the world. We're going to talk about being crisis resilient, and we're going to talk about parenting, even through challenging times. We're going to talk about navigating a new world. I feel like I'm talking to myself right now, and I know we're going live, so I may be talking to you. And I have a next exciting episode. What's going on in the world today? I have been, we've been playing with the kids. I have teenagers. So when we're playing together, it's often called forced family fun. And we set up a Pee-wee golf course in our house recently, using a dog ball and a broom for the ball and club. And we've been using all of the boxes that we've been getting deliveries in to make that happen. And here we go. We are live. We're preparing live. We'll see if that actually rocks and rolls. We're going to broadcast. We are now broadcasting to all the attendees. And we're going to record. We are set. Hello and welcome. We've got a next exciting episode of what is going on with you in your life right now. I'm not actually looking into your world, but I can imagine looking into your world, and there's a whole lot going on. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we will talk about all the stuff that you might be facing. Let's get there. Now you've seen all the things that I'm working on. We're going to talk about life worth living, parenting grieving children. And this program, interestingly enough, is also in collaboration with and in partnership with Reimagine End of Life. And we are, rather than filling the end of life and actually all of life with fear, Reimagine's goal, the mission that we've got together, working in collaboration, is to fill life with love. Even the most frightening parts, we want it to be filled with love. So let's do it. Here we go. Parenting grieving children through the life worth living process. We're going to start with She Was Only Planning Dinner, and we're going to focus this particular workshop on parenting with the assumption that you are parenting children. And the idea here is they could be kids of any age. They could be your inner child. It could be a partner who's not feeling particularly articulate or sophisticated or mature at the moment. So it could be a relationship that's not necessarily a parent-child relationship, but sometimes we need that extra love and embrace that a parent would give. So you can paraphrase what I'm saying when I'm talking about parenting and children, and you can rephrase that to your inner child and or to someone you care deeply about. When they need more than you have to give, what then? And what are some quick steps to become an alpha in the situation? Tips and tools to creating a resilient family. And at the end of this presentation, I have a gift for you. So stick with me. She was only planning dinner. I read on Facebook that one of my buddies from high school, who I used to go running with, went out for a run and had a heart attack and died. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I think this is a situation that is happening more and more, unfortunately, in the current world status that we're living in. And then I realized, in fact, I do know what to do because I have experienced intimate loss myself in the loss of my now late husband. And because I knew what to do, I was in this situation where I just couldn't do nothing. I had to do something. So I went to his widow and I said, this is never going to be okay. I'm going to hold your hand and walk with you. Let's project manage this thing. And all the mourners in the living room were like, whew, somebody's taking the lead. And that gave some certainty in an uncertain situation. It gave some control in an out of control situation. You know how you think you've got life all figured out, and suddenly some major thing happens in your life. It could be that you had your life all planned out and things were going to get great, and then there's a world pandemic that changes the world as we know it for everyone. It could be that that changed your role at work. It could be that you got laid off. It could be that now you're working remotely. How do you gain support from your management team, from your peers? So it changes your whole existence and work environment. Maybe you're experiencing some other kind of loss. Is it the loss of your freedoms? Is it the loss of someone you love and care about? Is it the loss of your health? Are you grief struck? And I know it's really, the whole world has been told, go to your room. And we're all, sheltering in place in protection of our health and our welfare and the people we care about and love. But what happens when your loved ones are put at risk or you lose them? It's major, major catastrophe. When your health and lifestyles change, it causes incredible stress, and stress is linked to 6 of the leading causes of death, according to the American Psychological Association. We have a physical response to stress, and I'm going to give you some tools on how to move through that. But what happens when we're so stressed out is we literally are looking for how we can stay sane, and that might be through escapism or getting involved in risky or dangerous behaviors. And that could put our career, our resource, and our revenue in jeopardy. And as a result, we end up missing joy in life. We miss touch, we miss laughter, we miss love or being in love. And the result of that is just feeling so depleted and isolated. And when you think you've got life all figured out and your landscape is scorched. Do you really want to stay stuck in grief without a plan to move forward, especially when life and grief just keeps knocking you down? If it's not one thing, it's another. You think you can rely on somebody and they can't be there for you. It's so lonely and isolating not to have someone that you can trust available to you to support you in the way that you need them. It's so depleting and isolating that you can't get a good night's sleep, and that puts the rest of your health at risk. And it exposes you to vulnerabilities, and you don't want those vulnerabilities to cause risk or danger in your life or health problems. And as a result, you end up losing your enthusiasm and love for the long run. So I actually was in a situation where I experienced my own incredible loss with the loss of my husband through a cancer journey. And all of these things were at risk. There are simple ways to prepare for these events that will move you forward instead of taking you down. Because there's more to life than just being the one who didn't die. So what I did was I came up with the Life Worth Living process. And this is what I have to share with you. Because even when the landscape is scorched and you don't even think you can wake up the next day or get out of bed, there is a process that's really just outside your comfort zone, one little step at a time, that can move you to a full and happy life. And you're then filled with people who will support you and protect you, and your family will be stabilized and safe. You'll be confident in your health and your self-care, because there's more than your life is at risk here. And there are tools in the Life Worth Living process to ensure that both you and your children and your loved ones have security and stabilization rather than vulnerability. And you can secure your assets, your job, your children. You can fall in love again and enjoy life celebrations, feeling inspired and fulfilled. I am Michelle Hoffmann. I had a major life role change, which totally changed my life to the point where rather than working in high level management and business development, I decided to take a pause and actually write Life Worth Living, a practical and compassionate guide to navigating widowhood and soul parenting, as my legacy and my gift to the world, because there was no guide for me. I met my husband on a cruise, and at the dinner table, whatever we were talking about, he was sure I was the right one for him. So it was love at first sight for him. It took me a little longer, like a couple hours longer, to realize the same about him. We were on the dance floor, and he was brave enough to kiss me, and I did what every man dreams of when he kisses a woman. I laughed. I know, that's not what he was dreaming of. So he asked, "What's so funny?" And I said, "My whole world has changed. It's like the train has come off the track and now it's going toward you." And that's what he was hoping for when he kissed me. So dot, 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 you can just fill in the gaps for the rest, and we can tell that in another story. We did get married, we invited children in, and we were living our quiet little happy life. And at a very young age, he was diagnosed with cancer. He had a 5-year cancer journey, and his dying words were, "I love you." And now the children and the dog and I are moving forward. And that's why once I had understood what it was like to stay stuck in grief, to be so lonely and isolated, to feel so depleted and shattered, to have grief slam my head against the kitchen wall and drop me to the floor, and grief puts its foot on my neck and prevents me from breathing or seeing my future. It's like, I need to figure out what my relationship is with grief so it can't keep doing this to me. And so I adjusted my relationship with grief by inviting it in for a cup of tea and a conversation, and identifying what grief holds that was such a treasure that I wasn't willing to let it go. And with that, I honored what I treasure in my grief. And that's how the depth of grief became equal to the depth of love that we shared, and actually helped move me forward. And this is just like the preface for how I went from functionally catatonic to living a life worth living, and a full and happy life. Now, I want to take a moment to share with you something so amazing, because it's that resilience. And some people have got it and some people don't. And here's what it is. This is a 45-second clip of my daughter on her very first roller coaster ride. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is really because every exciting or new developmental phase of life, and even transitioning from being a partner and married to a widow and a head of household and a parent to a sole parent, being and all the decision makers, that's a major role change, and it's a developmental change. So the metaphor here is that even the first time you went to high school, you're excited for a new phase in life, but then there's also some trepidation and fear and a sense of not having control of what's going on. And it's how you respond to your physical self and what your brain is telling you, and to gain that sense of self and confidence that determines the outcome. And in this little video, my daughter wanted to scream like a little girl on a roller coaster ride, because my late husband and son had been on the Tower of Terror, and they came back, and my son was laughing, going, "Daddy screamed like a little girl." And my daughter's like, "I'm a little girl, I want to scream too." So let's watch how she goes through these phases of experience in the roller coaster that we all do in every new experience that we have. So here she is. She's excited. She gets to scream like a little girl. What could be better than that? And she's practicing, and she's preparing, and she's understanding what's happening in her body, and she knows what to do. And then there's trepidation and a loss of control and incredible fear. Even her pigtails look scared, and her little face, oh my God, every time I see this video. And then you can almost see what happens. She's like, I'm in control, I'm safe, and she starts to enjoy it. And you can almost see that inner voice. Was that fun? Mm-hmm. So her inner voice said to herself, I know what to do. I went on this ride, whether it's high school or life or welcoming children into the world, even if it's hard, or letting kids go off to college. We hope that happens again soon, because it's a big life experience for them. So really, it's all about adjusting your relationship with this whole scenario to be better at responding to stress, whether it's a good stress, a hard stress, an exciting stress, whatever it is, it may save your life. And those physiological responses of changing your attitude toward stress acts on your brain, where your pituitary gland pumps out oxytocin, which is the cuddle drug, and actually makes you more social. And then you're reaching out to what I'll explain to you later is your advisory board, your inspirational advisory board. So look forward to that in just a few minutes. And also it's being aware of what happens in your body when stress is happening. I mean, sweet daughter, you could see, I mean, her pigtails weren't part of it, but her face turned red, her eyes got all puffy, her little face got all stretched, and she was clutching that roller coaster. But then she understood that this is the correct physical and emotional response to stress. And she goes to herself, I came on this ride so that I could scream like a little girl. I'm going to scream like a little girl and make the most out of it. And that's how you can change your attitudes towards stress, which actually then will develop a scenario in your body where it will strengthen your heart. And there's an inflammatory response to that. And it actually makes you stronger and more resilient. My very good friend and colleague, Dr. Adam Dorsey, who's a licensed psychologist here in California, was talking about developing resilience. And his concepts I thought were valuable enough, and he said, go ahead, use them, to know how to leap from anxiety to courage. One of the tools you can use is to ask yourself, what would your hero do? There's the serenity prayer of knowing the difference between what you do and don't have control of. The gratitude playlist of whether it's music that makes you happy, or it's just taking the moment to express yourself in words, in meditation, in thought, in gesture, in writing, in art, to identify what makes you happy and what is going your way right now. Comedy, of course, a good laugh really does solve so much. And there's so many negative messages, and they're changing so much in the news. It's important to remember to unwind and relax. And also to remember that loneliness is not a choice, but being alone is, especially when you're going through stress. Connect with your friends in real time. Now let's talk about the children, because they are going through this too. And I understand when you're busy taking care of everyone and everything, who is taking care of you? I would love to help you solve those problems, and you can ask questions here. And also I will give you an opportunity to connect with me, and I'll answer your questions, privately, one-on-one, and we'll customize that conversation during a free consultation with you. But today, let's talk about how the children are going through this too. So how do you understand even where they're at? Because they may shut down, or they may get very angry, and people misinterpret all of this. And sometimes it's so easy to forget what's initiated their behavior. And the way to remember that is to listen to what is not being said. When the kids are very little, I often suggest doing special time, playtime, and let them, during a calm moment, decide the game. And if you listen to what's not being said, they're going to tell you what's going on with them by, acting out what's bugging them or the conflict they might be experiencing in their heads. As the kids get older, we've got other techniques to do, but it's very distracting. And when you're stressed out, or worried or bullied, or your mind is somewhere else, you literally cannot learn. It's not time. Or if you're envious that other people are, what is it, FOMO, fear of missing out, are having a wonderful experience, and that is very isolating if you're not feeling part of the process of something bigger than yourself. They're going through this too if they're not getting involved in a community, and instead they're withdrawing. And those are all messages that you can hear by listening to their body language, listening to their choice of words. What are they missing? I know one of the things that's so hard for me is everybody experiences more than one emotion at a time. And I'm so happy when I see fathers and children together. And then I feel so melancholy because I don't have that for my children. And that, everyone has a situation like this. So are you ready to hear how I solve these problems? Because they're going through it too, and it creates rifts if you let this happen. And then there's a loss of communication between you and the children, or you and your loved ones, and that's exacerbating the whole situation so that you have further losses. And sometimes the children need to be reminded, it's not their fault. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything or say anything or think of anything that created this situation that is such a challenge. And your job is to be the best you that you can be. You can't actually be someone else. It will never work. It's finding out your authentic path and your way of doing it. So the question that comes up here is, how can you be both father and mother? And remembering that letting go doesn't mean you need to forget. It means that you're creating a safe space for that time that you shared with this precious loved one, and that you won't ever need to forget them. You honor them because you don't want to miss out on them. And you know that your children are missing out, but they don't know what they're missing out on. You do. And you don't want them to miss out on you. So it is just too costly to get stuck in grief, because then your children and your family and loved ones are missing out on you. And that's not where you want to go. So there are 3 things to do so your kids will come to you when they're in trouble. And this is all about creating communication, trust, and respect. And it's important to remember, having a child who's struggling does not make you a bad parent, just as being a child who is struggling doesn't make your child a bad kid. So let's start with communication. Creating an open line of communication is one of the best gifts you can give to anyone. And part of that really is being a good listener. So we talked earlier about listening to what's not being said. And most of the messages are being sent in their appearance, in their body language, in the way that they're taking care of themselves, in the energy that they're bringing, in their emotion, in addition to what they're articulating. And if your children are young and they can't articulate, they might be acting out. I have a client whose child came and said, "Oh, you silly fool," or I think it was a little harsher than that, but she was very offended by it and thought that her child was actually feeling that way. And through a series of conversations, and she didn't really respond in the best reaction the first time, but she did know to reach out to me, and we talked about it. And I'm like, "Why do you think he's doing that?" And she said, "I don't know, you talk to him." So I listened to him, and I heard what he said. And he said very clearly, he was a young kid, but he was able to tell me that he's having challenges at school. And he was using the very same messaging that the kids at school were using to him. And he tried everything. He responded to the kids. He asked for the grown-up. He talked to the teacher. He talked to the principal. Nothing was working. So he was actually communicating with his mom by trying it out on her to see how she responded. So he was seeing her as a mentor and advisor, as the alpha. And when she didn't respond well, it gave him no recourse. So again, I'm glad that she had somebody, if not me, somebody, but she knew that she and I had a relationship already. So she brought the situation to me, and I reframed it for her to say, look at what's going on, because he's using you as the role model. Let's see if we can adjust this relationship now and the situation so that he knows to come to you when he's in trouble. And he can say that instead of attacking you to see how you respond, so that when he's attacked, he knows how he responds. That creates trust. When the kids know that they're not going to be hurt by coming to you and telling you their truth, even if it's not the best truth, but knowing that they can confide in you. And I mean, with me and my kids, I can say that I get to respond any way I want, but within us, I will definitely take care of you, and I'm always on your side. And that's created a trust between us where we can talk about things that other families are, once they have these advice and these tools, they start to recreate that trusting environment. But it's really nice to be able to trust your kids and have them trust you. That then follows that there is respect and an honoring in both directions. And it's so much more fun to experience life in love that way. One of the things that we've had a challenge with is I've got a client whose child is absolutely grieving. And her concern was she didn't want to let go of her father, who had passed. And so the child was stuck in grief, and she was clutching to her mom and wouldn't let go, and all of this anxiety that was building up in all of that. And when we talked through it, what was really happening was she was afraid that if she let go of any of these feelings, or the memory of her dad's smell and the way he looked and everything like that, that he then too would disappear. And so we started to build exercises. We put together photo albums of real moments that happened that she could remember in that time frame. And we did some art projects, and we wrote letters. We did all these things so that she can understand that she will never lose those incredibly beautiful memories she had with her father, and that she gets to hold them as life gifts forever. When you're parenting grieving kids, it's important not to panic. It's easy to do, but it's important to separate rumor from reality and to process your own anxiety first. We've got a chance to take a breath. Because if we are not balanced and if we are not grounded, how can we possibly help the children come back into balance and be grounded as well? So when there's big messages that maybe the children don't understand, and there's miscommunications that go out so easily, and 100 are going through my head. One would be like, if people say their daddy is asleep. I had a client who came to me, and she said she asked her pediatrician what to say to her kids when the husband had passed. And the pediatrician's advice was not one that I would recommend. And the advice was just tell the kids that the daddy is on a 2-week business trip. And that wasn't going to work for many reasons. So we needed to tell the children the truth in an age-appropriate way and listen to what they understood to be the truth, that daddy wasn't just on a business trip. He's not just sleeping. So this is a situation where the children have experienced big loss of a parent. But we in the world right now have experienced big loss of the life as we knew it. And so to understand the importance of taking a breath, and when you feel like the emotional side of your brain is flooded, how do you gain control in that out of control situation? And taking a breath actually gives you control because you're doing it with intention, which then automatically triggers the logical side of your brain. And it also then brings all that energy from the back of your brain to your prefrontal cortex, where you can make sound decisions again. Now, remember that if your kids are having a meltdown, because the same thing is going to happen, all you need to do is rebalance and stabilize yourself. And then give them any choice. If they can make any decision whatsoever, you've transitioned them from a flooded emotional side of their brain to a logical side. And that's where you can start to tell them things that are logical. But if you've got a kid who's panicking or in this big spiraling meltdown, you can be as logical as you want. They just can't hear you. So give them control in an out of control situation. As we're working with ourselves as well as the kids, we separate things into 3 different sections so that we know we have balance. And I'm always looking for balance. And one of those things is to work on, especially with shelter in place, how do you get big motor skill actions? This would be running, jumping, playing, lifting weights, dancing, any of those big motor skills, playing tennis or any sports of any kind. And we can do that in the house too. Dancing is an easy one. We also did a circuit in our living room. So we have different stations and some are, like a minute of cardio and the next station is doing dips or sit-ups or something like that. So we have our living room's now become our gym. I know that's true for everybody. So those are the big motor skills. And then also remember to include fine motor skills. This would be Lego and painting and creating something with clay, or, using your hands, typing, anything where there's like intricate dexterity involved. And then it's all about intellectual pursuits to balance all of that out. If it's chess or an escape room, or having a conversation or debate or writing something out. Balancing, it's like you don't want to get too heavy in one arena. And by separating them into big motor skills, fine motor skills, and intellectual pursuits, it's a reminder of how to create balance in your life. We all need structure. Kids thrive on predictability. We all do, actually. And when you've got the structure in place, it allows for creativity. So putting that scaffolding together, giving a solid platform to move from, really allows for a new freedom of thinking, knowing that you can take risks and come back to a safe place. And again, a teacher can give you that opportunity of, you can try new things as long as you've got your teacher guiding you along the way, or your parent guiding you along the way. It gives you a sense of confidence that you're not going to make a huge error. And that's why we reach out for these kinds of coaches and teachers and mentors, so that we can take the opportunity to expand our zone of genius and go just outside our comfort zone to expand our world. Maintaining community. And right now it's a little bit harder than it's been in the past, but I'll tell you, even with the current situation, I have made friends 6 feet apart, and we've had family reunions. We had an international family reunion, and I met people who I'm related to on the family tree I've never met before, because we could all meet virtually. It's important to get outdoors and get some sun. The vitamin D is imperative, and go get some exercise if you can. And work together with your friends, your colleagues, your people. I know if one of your big life role changes is that you used to commute into the office and you were energized by your peer group at work, And now everyone's working from home. I know people, I have a client who's telling me that he feels like he's just sitting in the dark chasing numbers. And he's sharing his living room, which is the entertainment center, and the gym, as I mentioned, and the homeschool for his kids and his wife. And the cute pet is like, oh, you're home. Let's play. Let's go out for a walk. And he's like, it's just overwhelming. So people say, well, take care of yourself. And I always wonder, what does that really mean? And can't you just do it for me? Because I would really like someone else to take care of me for a while. Wouldn't we all? And actually, when my daughter was very little, she had age-appropriate invisible friends. And they were named Good Food and Bad Food. Now, Good Food taught you good manners and how to behave appropriately and get your work done and contribute and be friendly and eat good food, growing food, and really, how to be a good role model. And Bad Food was a little mischievous. And Bad Food teaches you how to be naughty and how to eat junk food and how to get away with stuff. And she says to me, Mom, I just need to be a little bit stronger than Bad Food. And I'm like, best self-help book in the whole world, right there in one sentence. You don't need to be the Olympic athlete of best parent all the time, or amazing chef, or you don't need to be the world's best financier and healthcare practitioner and, employee and employer and parent and partner and child and cousin all wrapped in one thing. You just need to be a little stronger than Bad Food to stay ahead of the game. So one of the things, again, we were talking about balance and staying a little bit ahead of Bad Food. How do you formulate your circle of strength? So in my family situation, my kids were growing emotionally and spiritually while their peers were growing physically and intellectually. And so they felt out of sync with their peers, their peer group. And because I was able to itemize what was going on here, just like we were talking about big motor skills and fine motor skills and intellectual pursuits, this is another way to slice that pie to evaluate what's going on with you, what's going on with your children, and where do they need more balance. Let's talk about the obligation Richter scale. The obligation Richter scale is a way to communicate with the people you love to let them know how important something is or isn't. For example, on the scale of 1 to 10 being the most, brushing your teeth, washing your hands and face and brushing your teeth twice a day. To me, my family values, it's a 10. So if they're not doing it, I'm going to help them by reinforcing that until they can make the right decision for themselves. If the situation is, would you like to have seconds of pasta? It's really a 5. If you want it, it's there. If not, don't worry about it. But sometimes adding an importance to a situation is a way to communicate and give relevance to something, because otherwise it's too easy to go, is seconds on pasta equally important to self-care? And if you don't know, this is a means to help you through that. One of the other things that we did, I was working with a group of people. This was a whole workshop. And the situation had come up that they wanted to send a message or create a legacy, as I have with the book, to the people who are in a similar situation with a life role change. And so I came up with the idea to write loving letters to the children, to create a legacy of love. So I had done this with my late husband. We sat down and he dictated and I wrote, and they're very interesting letters. He wrote letters to the children when they graduate, elementary school, junior high, high school, on the big life events, in our case, bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, First kiss. Oh my God, that one's so funny. And it's very different for each kid. When you learn to drive a car, your sweet 16, the first time your heart gets broken. Ugh. When you're really angry at your mom. He's kind of shows up for me, even though he's not here anymore. I would say, oh, you're really angry at your mom. Your dad wrote you a letter. Here. So it's a collection of future letters to your loved ones. And I actually have outlines of those. I kind of did them like a Mad Lib so that you've got a prompt for each one. So if you're interested in that, email me and I'm happy to share them with you. One of the challenges after a major life change, and we're all going through this right now, is surviving a return to community. And I'm going to use this not only in the situation where, if you've lost someone you're close to, but let's use everyone's in this situation at this moment in time with the pandemic. The whole world has been sent to shelter in place and either be essential to maintaining our world or protect everyone by protecting yourself. So I say lead, follow, or get out of the way. And there's going to be a time as we open things up again. And how do we survive a return to the community? And really what we need to do is be the alpha and make the decision that this is how we're going to behave. And this is how I expect you to behave with me. In the case of returning to the workplace, it's respectful, it's maintaining a new respect, it's acknowledging how important we are to each other, just the people in our everyday lives who we've been missing seeing in our routines. In this situation of children returning to school, they're gonna feel a little out of place. All of them are. And if there's been an additional loss in the family, they're not going to know how to let other people know how they need to be treated. So really, it's a matter of communicating with people in advance so that they have surrogates, people they can go to, and giving enough information that they won't fall into any pitfalls. What's happening right now with the virtual schools environment is a reminder. And what we've seen so far is that the virtual schools, they're at different levels. We are fully functional in our school, and the teachers are teaching online. Really, my teenagers are loving this life of commuting from their bed to their screen. But the reality of it is we need to add that online safety. And it's a reminder of how important it is that we understand in this new world that we're walking and stepping into, that there are going to be new challenges and obstacles that we haven't anticipated. And one of my clients says, your hindsight gives me foresight. And because we're already there, I can help guide that process along the way. Another thing that we do with the kids, especially when they're smaller and they want to stay up during, when it's time to go to bed, or we'll do it at dinner. We play a game called Sad, Mad, Glad. And this is to support vulnerable or grieving children. And we just ask, it's a really simple game, and they super love it because they get to vocalize anything they want. And your job is to not hold judgment and ask, did anything make you sad today? Did anything make you mad today? Did anything make you glad today? And they will tell you so much. And some of the children will hold what was really important or big or threatening to them until sad, mad, glad. So do it on a consistent basis so they know they have that, you've created time and space for that. And then you get the insight that you never would have known to ask for. And they will open up and share with you in a whole new way. Again, building communication, trust, and respect. Then when it's your turn and they get to ask you, what made you sad today? What made you mad today? What made you glad today? You then have an opportunity to share your truth and your values. And it could have made you glad that they opened up to you and shared that story. It could have made you sad that they weren't getting along. So Sad, Mad, Glad's a fantastic tool to use with anyone. As the kids get older, I've adjusted Sad, Mad, Glad to, would you like me to listen, guide, or help? And with that, the hardest part, again, is to do what they're asking of you. And if they're open to communicating and they say, listen, it's my job or your job to shut your mouth and open your ears and just listen and breathe and show neutral face and just acknowledge. And it's not until they invite you to guide that you're allowed to have an opinion. And if you can hold those boundaries for yourself and them, then they will open it up to you. And one of the things I say is, thank you for letting me guide you. I'm happy that I get to share my value system with you, and we can go through all the if-then statements and potential outcomes and consequences to those. And I know you're going to do what is right for you, but thank you for inviting me to guide. And then if they really can't figure it out, they'll invite you to help them. And once you've got their buy-in, or they've actually invited you, then the relationship is totally different, and it's a trust. And it's really all about the power of listening. Listen to their body language. Listen to what's not being said. Listen to the pause between the words, or the speed, the cadence, the inflection. Those are the things that you need to listen to. And that's what's going to guide you, or put somebody in place to listen for those things if you don't feel like you're getting it, to create an inspirational advisory board. And this, I promised I'd talk about this, right? This is all very much like an organization creates a board of directors so that they have this, world-class expertise they can go to. It's the phone a friend game of people who they can trust, people who know what they're talking about, because you can't know everything and you can't be everywhere all the time for your kids or for yourself, for anybody. So designate who you can trust and who you know could have the answers when you need them. So there's 3 different sections of the Inspirational Advisory Board. Emotional advisors. There are those people who can just be the shoulder to cry on, or who are just like fun to have around. These are people who will say you're always right, no matter what, and they're always going to be on your team. Totally keep those people around. Then there's the emotional advisors who are on your team, and when you're out of line, they will not just agree with you or blow air up your skirt, is what I say. Because they're going to say, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but could you see it differently? Because those people are actually going to give you a different perspective. And that different perspective might be just what you need for the aha moment to go, oh, I understand the picture more clearly now, thank you. So to trust in that. The next section of advisors are subject matter experts. These are the world-renowned experts. You could Google the information. Having someone on hand who really knows what they're talking about and who can customize the situation to your life circumstance, priceless. Now, these could be somebody you hire like a healthcare provider to help you with your health. It could be an attorney to help you with legal matters. It could be a financial or wealth advisor. It could be a mechanic who knows and understands. They've decided to specialize so that you don't have to, and you can focus on your zone of genius. It's also imperative to remember that their zone of genius has a limit, and to not cross-reference if they don't have cross skill sets. So you don't necessarily get milk from the Comcast guy. You don't go to the mechanic to talk about your love life. But if there is somebody who is comprehensive enough to sit down and coach and guide you, they might be able to refer you to specific people who are then going to talk about their zone of genius. So you figure out your superpowers, and then you figure out your kryptonite, and you fill in the kryptonite gaps with surrogates, I call it. Same thing holds true for the kids. Where are the vulnerable moments during the day? Is it on the bus? In which case, maybe you need to give them a buddy on the bus or a ride. Is it, I'm thinking of situations that we've run into with clients. Is it during a class when there was a personal narrative that needed to be written and this child was paired up with somebody who had been bullying them all day long? And then was like, oh, your dog died and your dad died and you have to write a narrative. Oh, poor you. Well, it didn't create a great opportunity for writing in that moment. But, you know, the teacher would never have paired those two kids together had the teacher realized what was going on. Is it, you know, is there somebody the kid can go to and just give the signal to the teacher and go, I need a minute. Now, the circumstances, and then they can go see a counselor. The circumstances are different at this moment where some of the stress is off because they're in their safe comfort zone at home, in which case we need to talk with you to make sure that your anxiety level is calmed and you're stabilized because you're the best strength they have. And in reality, a lot of this is like bumper bowling, where we want to send you down the right path, right down that alley to knock down the pins and make it a strike. But sometimes you need to learn things on your own and bump against the bumpers. And we need to be that embrace the bumpers to make sure you don't go off the beaten path into dangerous and risky behaviors, but that you stay on the path even though you have to learn the experiences the hard way. And you know, yeah, you think you've got life figured out, and then you're like, I just don't have the energy to do this anymore. How do you put surrogates in place and friends in place and community in place so that beyond a shadow of a doubt, you are not making a decision that's going to put your love life at risk? It's not going to put your children at risk. It's not going to put yourself at risk. How do you ensure that you've got 100% confidence that you won't make the wrong choice? You need to make sure you have people and situations in place so that you make the right choice 100% of the time rather than getting involved in risky and dangerous behaviors. One of the things that we talk about is creating a vision, aligning your authentic self with that, and then putting together the incremental steps to achieve that goal. And one of the tricks that we use is a SWOT analysis. And in business, a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And in any situation, you can do this. I do it with the kids. Where are you at? What's going on with you? And then we actually use stickies. And I go, what are your strengths? What are your superpowers? What are your kryptonite? What's your weaknesses? And what opportunities do you have? And what's getting in the way? Now, with all of those on stickies up on a wall, I literally just play them out on the wall. So it's like D-school design thinking. And go, well, where are we at? What are our options? And if we can put all of those together, it just gets it out of you and it makes it clear to them so that they can see what chances that they have and what are the options. So one of the other things we talk about is false people to look out for, like subscription friends, or I call it click locked. And again, it's not happening in the same way right now in the current environment, but it is a reality. And you don't want to get click locked in with subscription friends where you have to behave a certain way, even if it's not true to who you are. And you have to show up and do things the way that the powerful, popular, they're not really the popular people, they're the powerful people. That's your secret, because nobody wants to be their next victim, so they do what they say. And if what they say is, here's what you need to do, and here's how you need to dress, and here's how you need to act, then you got to wonder, is this really a superficial subscription friend who's using their power? Or is it somebody who's authentically a very good friend to you? And I've got a client, Ellen, who was dealing with a situation like that. And she was being bullied by a very good friend of hers. And what we talked about is similar to if you had a delivery at your house and it wasn't intended to you, you wouldn't sign for it and you wouldn't accept the package, you would return it to sender. So when those messages are not actually intended for you, like being belittled or demeaned or having a narcissist attacking you, don't sign for those packages. They were not gifts that were intended for you in the first place. That was that person's insecurity about them. It had nothing to do with you. So with Ellen, we adjusted situations so that she knew that her path was her own and that her relationship with this person was actually an energy sucker, not a support. And she was actually able to become the alpha in that relationship and stabilize herself and reevaluate who she wanted to be. And she was looking for then her passion and her purpose and where she adds value. And that's how she knew how to make decisions. And what she was doing was she was spending a whole bunch of money on things that didn't really serve her, but it kind of made her, look good on the outside, but it wasn't feeding or nourishing her for or on the inside. So once we got things in alignment, she actually saved a ton of money by understanding how to make decisions on a clear and lighted path that was her own, not what other people were telling her. And the message with that is to take what you need, not more than what you need. Give what you can, not more than what you have. And implied in that message is take what you need and leave the rest behind. And that's going to hold true with this message, with all the messages that you're receiving. And also identify and deal with other people's issues, realizing that those belong to them. You don't need to receive those gifts. And then you can find healthy ways to celebrate your life milestones and how to get through the challenging days and what should be celebratory days. And how do you celebrate in a new way with intention that is your own? So what about the children? What can you best do for them? You can make sure that you are not staying stuck in grief, because what's it costing you? What's it costing you to have them stuck in grief? What's it costing when grief is constantly knocking you back down and you feel like you can't move forward? What are you missing out on in your one precious life? When you're so lonely and isolated and you don't have someone that you can trust who's got your best interest in mind, or you're feeling so depleted that your health is becoming a risk factor, and it then, of course, would affect your whole family. What about the fear of losing your fiscal life, your finances, the things you've saved up for? What about losing family members? I met a woman on my journey and she was like, where were you when we needed you? I'm like, I'm right here. I'm right here. So feel free to amplify my voice and say, I am here. And her situation was that her sister's husband passed. And her sister did get a life insurance settlement. And she was using that money to fill and nourish herself like Ellen was doing. It was a different person though. And she was buying cars and vacations, and she was trying to find herself again very quickly by having these experiences. But as a result, she was totally missing her children, and her children were missing out on her because she was so lost in this grief, and she didn't have a plan. And she didn't have an occupation she could rely on to refill that bucket. And what happened was her children felt exiled from her, and her son got involved in risky and dangerous behaviors in a crowd of subscription type folks, and he ended up dying by suicide. And the daughter was so distraught by this and disappointed that she retreated from the mom. So not only did this family lose the husband, they lost the son, and they lost communication, trust, respect, and the relationship between the mother and the daughter. And you and I know they needed each other more than ever. Now is the time. Do you want to know how to solve the challenges you're facing right now? I cleared some space on my calendar to spend one-on-one time with you. And as a gift for being present during this presentation and this workshop, I would love to invite you to go to yourlifeworthliving.org, LifeWorthliving.org, and at yourlifeworthliving.org or thewidowguide.com. It'll take you to the same place. If you want to talk about if I might be the right fit for you to work on things together, let's get on a call. It won't cost you anything, and I'm sure we're going to come up with some really good ideas. I know you all have a lot of questions. So if you'd like to connect about your specific situation, go to yourlifeworthliving.org or go to this Acuity site. And this is my scheduling page. And to get there, you just click on a time that's available and I will send you a follow-up and we can spend some time together. But start by going to yourlifeworthliving.org. Take the moment right now. We have a few minutes, so just open up, a browser and go to yourlifeworthliving.org, and you're going to see my big face, and you can download a copy of my book for free. And then on the right-hand side of yourlifeworthliving.org, you just scroll down, and there's going to be a button that says, I am ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Because when the pain of the problem is greater than the action required to resolve it, it's time to take action. And I will walk this journey with you because your life is worth living. So what are you going to do with your one precious life? Go to yourlifeworthliving.org. It's time. So I want to take a moment and thank you and thank Reimagine, the Global Reimagine, the Global Virtual Reimagine, to collaborate, and thank you for inviting me back and welcoming me into your life and into your homes, and knowing that I've cleared some space for you so that we can have one-on-one time. And this isn't the end of our relationship. This is the beginning. There's so much that has happened in this incredible pause in life, and it's time to pull life together and really recreate this vision and figure out how to create your life worth living. Thank you for your time. I will see you on Life Worth Living on my Facebook page, but come to Your Life Worth Living and let's set up some time together.